The musician who's become the quintessence of artistry and has earned the recognised title of the Swamp Princess. It's Doechii. Welcome to 6 Notes of Separation. If you're new to the podcast, here's how it's going to work. Every episode, I dive into an artist exploring their lives, their music, and their paths to success. But to keep things a little bit fun and flirty for you all, I've put my own little spin on things. Each episode has to be linked to the previous and succeeding artist I look into in some way. This could be through a producer in common, through relationship history of some kind, or even through a subliminal lyrical reference. Truly anything goes as long as there's a connection. So without further ado, I'm going to be taking you through the life of the 3-time Grammy nominated, unbelievably talented and talk of the moment breakthrough artist, Doechii. Before we go back to the start of it all, however, it's time to reveal the link between this week's and last week's Lana Del Rey. Lana and Doechii have some parallels in relation to each other, which I'll get onto later on in the episode. It's kind of their two lives seem to kind of go in a very similar trajectory, and it's something I'll point out. But the main link these two have is their rather nasty and heated online feuds with the female rapper Azealia Banks. Azealia Banks is probably one of the most problematic and polarising figures in the music industry. She finds a way to hate on and pick fights with everyone, one of these key victims being Lana Del Rey. The differences began in 2018 with Lana commenting on an Instagram post of Kanye West's where he's wearing a MAGA hat, quite fitting considering the context when this is being filmed. But she commented saying, "Trump becoming president was a loss for the country, but your support of him is a loss of the culture." I mean, a powerful, punchy statement, which honestly, I would like that. I would hit a like on that. But she went to call Kanye out for endorsing sexual assault, at which Azealia Banks decides to enter the chat and clap back to Lana. She calls Lana out for being hypocritical since Lana worked with A$AP Rocky in 2017, who had famously slapped a female fan in 2013. So yeah, it didn't really fly with Azealia Banks that Lana was calling Kanye out for endorsing sexual assault. Banks continued saying Lana used West for her own vapid attempts to seem politically aware. And so an intense and nasty Twitter war proceeded to unfold between the two. It ended with Banks body shaming Lana and Lana calling Banks borderline psychotic. But the controversial rapper didn't think to stop the hate train there. Fast forward to 2022 and Azealia Banks announces on her Instagram that she is going to hop on a remix for Doechii's song Crazy, only to say that this remix wouldn't be happening a couple of hours later and doesn't give a reason why. And as we know with Azealia Banks, she doesn't leave things there. She continues. She starts to publicly criticise Doechii, indirectly talking to her label TDE, also known as Top Dog Entertainment, saying, and excuse my profanity, but I am just quoting what a Banks said. She said, "You have this fucking Doechii chick who I have no fucking clue who she is." Immediately outright lying, because she was literally about to hop on a remix with Doechii and seemed excited about it. So that's just a fib. And also just being outrageously aggressive for no apparent reason. Doechii handles this with grace, saying she had nothing but excitement and respect in regards to working with Azealia, which I think is really a testament to Doechii's character. But she does eventually bite back late in 2024 with a whole new Banks versus Doechii feud. To summarise, Doechii posted on her Instagram a question asking what her fan base should be called, and Banks, being the lovely woman that she is, comments saying wannabes. And Doechii bites back. Doechii says it's not her fault that Banks is selling soap while she's selling platinum records, which, very valid point. But again, Azealia Banks takes things one step further, claiming Doechii isn't talented but merely a DEI hire, and that people are only saying she's talented because they're scared that if they don't, they'll be called out for being racist. In and amongst this, Doechii fought back, saying Banks only gossips about black artists to stay relevant, and in a similar claim to Lana, says she's one post away from the psych ward. But it's safe to say that this animosity and this ugly feud was not the overarching story of Doechii's career from the past month or so. In fact, a lot of this feud seems to have kind of got lost in the growing success and public endorsement of Doechii and her musical talent, which, in a long-winded but nicely flowing way, takes us to Florida in 1998, where Jaylah Hickmon was born. Hickmon's desire to be a performer in any capacity came one Christmas when her grandparents bought her what she describes as a little superstar kit. The kit came complete with a mic, an outfit, and a DVD that taught choreography to songs, and after putting on a couple of home performances for her family, Jaylah realised just how much she loved the attention that performing gave her. Growing up, Doechii, or Jaylah Hickmon, if we'll call her that, was raised by her mum, and her education evolved around Christianity and going to church. In hindsight, Doechii later reflected that her mum's devotion to the church was an effort to turn her life around and to make sure that her kids had really good morals built into them. Doechii also claims that all of her artistic values and training came out of the church. Again, a nice parallel to Lana here is that they both started off singing, and like their passion for music both started off through joining their church choir, and that was kind of careers they both thought they were going to have. But the story of Doechii is truly nothing without the story of Jaylah. From a young age, I'm talking from as early as 8 years old, Jaylah was bullied constantly for the colour of her skin, saying in an interview when she was older that being dark-skinned was just brutal. A significant and traumatising moment she recalls was a day at school when she was sitting on the bleachers by the sports field, only for a guy from her class to push her off and spit in her face, calling her a black bitch. She reflected that something about that experience traumatised me because he was the same colour as me, and said that it took me years to unpack the self-hate that he had at that time. I think that offers like a really poignant and perceptive response where it almost feels like Doechii has a hint of forgiveness for the boy, that she doesn't hate him or resent him because she was intuitive enough to recognise that his hatred towards her was only hatred deflected from himself. And if anything, I think that thought process and that understanding from her really acts as a microcosm for who Doechii is as a person and like her character. And I guess it also taps into that Christian upbringing where I suppose forgiveness maybe is a big thing that was instilled in her, but I don't think many people would have it in them to reflect on that experience and see and maybe think about the boy's mental state at the time, you know, and have the grace to not, maybe she doesn't forgive them, but have the grace to at least understand why they did what they did. But obviously the forgiveness I've kind of inferred from this and the understanding of the situation, as I just said, was something that took years for Doechii to unpack. At the time, this offence, amongst all the other relentless occasions of bullying and racism Jaylah was subject to, became a growing weight and pressure on her shoulders. The hatred everyone treated her with became a hatred she held towards herself, and it all boiled into a crisis point in Jaylah's Year 6 summer, aged 10 or 11 for context, when she attempted to commit suicide. I mean, reading up about this story, I actually don't even want to call it a story because that makes it feel like this kind of pretense instead of it being like a lived experience and a reality for Doechii, but her past just broke my heart reading up about it. The fact that at 10 years old or 11 years old, she was hated so severely and verbally abused so consistently and intensely that it forced her to want to die. I mean, there's nothing about that isn't overwhelmingly heartbreaking and overwhelmingly painful to retell. Just sitting here speaking about it is quite a heavy thing, you know, it hits the heart quite heavily. So to have that as your reality and your lived experience, I don't know, I just think it's really, really upsetting, and it only deepens my respect and admiration for Doechii, for how she picks herself up and cracks on with life in such a powerful way. Anyway, Doechii spoke about the suicide attempt in an interview saying, "After I tried to kill myself and it didn't work, I realised what the fuck life was really about. I had to find a reason to live. I got really bullied really fucking bad, but it pushed me into living. I actually am grateful that it happened because now I know why I'm here, and I've never lost that." A really incredibly compelling statement there from Doechii. Again, the way she takes that pain and that darkness and turns it into a hunger for life. It's truly just remarkable. Like, you know, at an age like that, having that much I mean, I hate calling it darkness, but I guess that's what it is. But having that much pain at 10 years old, at 11 years old, and being able to take that pain and turn it into something positive, it genuinely mind blows me. And I feel like it's really cliche to say that it's inspiring, but I think it is, because it could have been so easy for her to just stay and have a really depressing, sad life and kind of give up on everything she wanted, but she didn't do that. She didn't let other people take that from her. With that change as well, with that change of mindset, came another realization for 11-year-old Jaylah. She realized that every time someone would point out her skin color or make a racist remark, it was because she was in a state of power that caused threat to others. Again, she hits us with the self-reflection, saying that nobody's ever called me a black bitch when I was depressed or sad. And this revelation is really what underpins and is the backbone of her 22 EP, She, Her, Black Bitch. But in this traumatic yet pivotal summer, it's also a form of mild existentialism that had her outlook on life change before her eyes. Along with the hunger to live and the recognition of the true source for the abuse she received, Jaylah realised in a similar existential way to Lana that one day she would die and be buried alone with no family beside her. A very sad thought that I'm sure has crossed all of our minds before. But whilst these dark thoughts were the same that derailed Lana from a very young age, causing Lana to turn to alcoholism, check out last episode if you want to know more about that, Jaylah took these daunting thoughts and concluded that when she did die, she'd want to be happy. And she didn't believe in what others believed about her, so she shouldn't take what they said to her personally. Once more, I can't stress enough how hard-hitting it was reading up about this and reading up about her story, because I didn't know anything about Doechii before coming into this, and all of a sudden having all of this past of hers unravel and the way she's found her outlook on life and the way her outlook on life is the way that it is, it really touched me, and I'm sure I hope it will do the same for you guys, because it's really, really remarkable. Like, not only I feel like we all know her as a talented musician, but actually she has such a history of traumatic events and darkness in her past. Yeah, I just find it really fascinating. But to go back to what I was saying, it was here at the age of 11 when she started a new chapter in her life, writing the opening line in her journal, "I am Doechii." These three revelations that had come to Jaylah at such a devastatingly young age is ultimately what freed her, and those beliefs and that state of mind is what she decided to name Doechii. Again, like Lana, the name change was in no way an alter ego or some form of pretense. It was really what Doechii describes as her core. And so now we can move on to how this 11-year-old Jaylah became the 26-year-old success story we now know her as. In year 10, aged 14 to 15 years old, Doechii attended a performing arts school with her heart being set on becoming a professional choral singer. But it wasn't until her friend encouraged her to make music independently that Doechii's poetry and love for music welded together to make a recipe for success. In 2016, she started posting covers and originals to YouTube, making vlogs to build and retain the audience she was getting from her following on SoundCloud. Her debut mixtape dropped in 2019, but has subsequently been taken off all streaming platforms for reasons that are really unbeknownst to me. But it was her sophomore mixtape, which followed a year later, that marked her introduction into the music industry. This mixtape, called Oh the Places You'll Go, focused on Doechii's acceptance towards her realising she was bisexual, detailing the struggle between being raised as a Christian and letting go of the fear of coming out. Her song Yucky Blucky Fruitcake ended up going viral on TikTok, leading her to get a plethora of record labels showing their interest in her. Doechii ended up signing with Top Dog Entertainment, known for launching the career of Kendrick Lamar and SZA, and was flown out to LA to work with the producer Cal Banks. A tequila shot and a freestyle later, and Doechii became the first female rapper signed to TDE. I mean, it's really, really remarkable that she goes from 11 years old attempting to commit suicide to a couple years later, like 14, 15 years old, she's now Doechii, not an alter ego, but a newfound confidence and a newfound mindset, starting to rap on SoundCloud. And then by 2021, her 2020 EP blows up on TikTok and gets huge attraction from record labels. It's just what we want for Doechii. It's what we want for her. No one deserves this more than her. I'm so enthusiastic about this woman. Anyway, as rosy as this all sounds, sadly, there's going to be a bit of a change in tone, but as rosy as this all sounds, the drastic, almost overnight success Doechii had caused her to feel a level of discomfort and loneliness she hadn't quite prepared for. Moving to LA would be a culture shock for anyone, but moving to LA whilst simultaneously navigating who to trust in the industry was a whole other beast. Although never describing what she had as an alcohol addiction, Doechii did say that she turned to drinking to cope, and it was for this reason that it took her so long to finally be in a place where she could sober up and release what would become Alligator Bites Never Heal. But before, I really get onto Alligator Bites Never Heal, I think it's quite important to just zoom in on that for a second. Top Dog Entertainment flew her out to LA. That's where she ended up living and moving her whole life to. And she was still really young when all of this happened. I think she must have been maybe like 23-ish, around that age. At 23 years old, having to move to another state in a completely new environment, not knowing anyone, let alone in an industry which we know from the podcast episodes I've done is littered with sexual harassment and manipulation. It's no wonder that was going to throw an artist off, and it's no wonder that alcohol became the coping mechanism for that. Again, as I said, Doechii did not have an alcohol addiction. She's never claimed that she did. But I think what seems to be a common thread, I mean, it's not just in musicians, it's in people, but with Post Malone and with Lana Del Rey, previous episodes I've done, both of them turned to alcohol to fill this hole, to fill this pit of loneliness. So yeah, I don't know, should labels do more? Maybe, like, just as a wider question and thought, I'm thinking, should there just be more in place to protect artists? I don't know. I mean, that's a very simple, broad question to ask, but I think it's food for thought. Anyway, as I said, Doechii, it took her a while to release music because she wasn't in the right headspace. There was pressure to make music for TikTok, to make music for radio. And along with the kind of influence of alcohol, she just wasn't really feeling herself. She wasn't feeling Doechii. But when she did sober up and when she did have time to think about what she wanted to make, that's when she lands us with the 2024 smash hit mixtape, Alligator Bites Never Heal. Now, this mixtape didn't necessarily top charts, I don't think. It wasn't on the top of charts. It wasn't in the top 10 on radio airplays, but it's had a cultural moment that I would say is probably the biggest cultural moment we've had since Brat. Maybe since Wicked. I would say Wicked and Doechii were kind of on par with each other. Maybe that's a sweeping statement from me. But leading up to this, Doechii had some pretty sick experiences, such as opening for a couple of SZA shows in 2021, as well as collaborating with SZA on her song Persuasive. She got to perform at the 2022 BET Awards, delivering a powerful and iconic performance in which she snatches off her wig. She opened for Doja Cat's Scarlet Tour in 2023, had a daytime slot at the main stage at Coachella, and had her acting debut in a BAFTA-winning independent film called Earth Mama. That, as a lead-up to Alligator Bites Never Heal, is just exquisite. Just exquisite. But it's funny that despite all of these huge achievements, I mean, come on, like you've toured with SZA, you've toured with Doja Cat, you've been in a BAFTA award-winning independent film, you've performed at some award shows, all of that, like, this is a thing, even though it feels like Doechii's success was slightly overnight, just in terms of how big she got so quickly, I guess. She's been in the industry for a while, like she's been around. It's just she kind of went from 0 to 100 really, really quickly, and I think that's why people think it was an overnight success. But as I said, it's really the latter half of 2024, the past 6 months that have just taken place, where Doechii's name became the word of mouth. She became, headline success. For a month-by-month breakdown, here is how it went. In August, Alligator Bites Never Heal was finally released to high praise and endorsement. In September, she featured on the deluxe version of Katy Perry's 143. In October, she featured on Tyler, the Creator's Chromacopia. In November, she's given a performance slot at Tyler's music festival, Camp Flognor. And in December, this is where it really kicks off. In December, she delivers 2 jaw-dropping performances on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert and then NPR's Tiny Desk concert. And it was these live performances that grabbed the attention of the whole internet, as well as some of the biggest names in the industry, such as Kendrick Lamar, such as Billie Eilish, such as Hayley Williams and Gracie Abrams. Everyone's posting about Doechii and everyone's congratulating her and just praising her for who she is and for the artist that she is, as we all should, as they all should. Doechii's breath control, choreography, lyricism, honesty, and ability to tell a story are all qualities you don't tend to find in one artist, and you certainly don't tend to find in the rap and hip hop scenes. So while she's rumoured to open for Kendrick and SZA's Grand National Tour, which is kicking off this spring very excitingly, I think it comes as no surprise or guesswork that Doechii will be set to win some Grammys next month and will continue to gain recognition and praise for raising the bar in terms of what it means to be an artist. And I think that's really what it is. She's not a musician, she's not a songwriter, she's not a rapper, she's an artist, okay? You watch these performances she puts on and it's pure artistry, the way there's thought into the lighting, the sets, the costume, obviously the lyricism and the performance and the delivery and the acting, and all of it's her. All of it is all her brain and her vision. She's a visionary. And I think that's why Doechii feels so exciting. She's fresh, she's new. She's probably the freshest thing we've had in the industry since Charlie's Brat, dare I say a statement as huge as that. But I think she is. And I think people feel that excitement from her. And yeah, even though I haven't, there's not a lot musically for me to talk about with her because her catalogue isn't that vast, I just think it's really important to zoom in on that early state. I think it's important to zoom in on Jaylah at 10 years old, 11 years old, who's survived. I mean, I don't know if survive's even the correct word. It doesn't really feel like the correct word, but she's been through and been the subject of all this racism and all this abuse and all this bullying. And Jaylah turns herself into Doechii. I don't know why that's so astounding to me, but it really is. I just think it's so touching to hear a story like that, where it's like, you 10 years old, 11 years old, wanting to commit suicide, attempting to commit suicide, and not really seeing a point to life and feeling so hated and feeling so much hatred for yourself that it kind of feels like there's no joy or point to living. And then to take all of that at 11 years old and at 11 years old to be like, you know what? I don't agree with what people are saying. I don't, people can call me horrible things, but I don't necessarily agree with that. And, one day I'm going to die and I want to die happy. To take that existentialism and not let it throw her off or derail her, but to actually make her motivated to get the most out of life. I think it's really hard to do that. It's really hard to do that. And not to get too deep or personal about it, but I think it's so easy to have those existential thoughts and for that to further the depression and for that to be like, oh God, well, we're all going to die anyway. What's the point? But the fact that she sees that and is like, oh no, the point is I want to have this life and be happy in it before it gets to the end point. Yeah, I think it's a perspective we all try hard to follow, and sometimes we have varying levels of success with that. And I'm sure, like I said, when she moved to LA, she did have a period of darkness and loneliness, but for the majority, she's done a bloody good job at getting herself back on track and getting herself to a place where Jaylah would have wanted her to be. So to conclude, from the 10-year-old Jaylah who tried to take her own life to the 26-year-old Doechii whose artistry will no doubt have inspired the next generation of musicians, it's safe to say that Jaylah's mission to keep hold of her purpose has been nothing short of a deep, deep success. Thank you all so much for listening. If you want to keep up with everything Six Notes of Separation, make sure to follow us at Six Notes Podcast on Instagram and TikTok. I will be back very, very shortly with another episode on another artist where we'll be exploring the link between them and Doechii.